So today we're going to be talking about my work operating system, which is really just a combination of a bunch of different things that I've picked up over the past couple of years of, well, just working. And I've worked into my daily routine, my weekly routine, things that I do that help me get work done. So you've probably noticed we've got a different angle here today. And first of all, that's just because I got tired of sitting. So we're standing for this one. And also I've got my whiteboard right here. So we're going to go into exactly some of the things I use that whiteboard for, and then some of the other things that I use to improve my work ability on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, etc., etc. So with that being said, of course, my name is Owen, and about 2 years ago now, I founded Guardian Audits, and ever since then, we have uncovered over 100 different critical and high vulnerabilities in smart contracts, probably even over 200 at this point, from auditing, I think, about 1,000 different smart contracts at this point. And I've personally spent 2,000 or 3,000 hours auditing smart contracts to get there. And everything that I do with all the videos that I put out is to distill that knowledge down and give it to you so that you can ultimately become a much, much better smart contract auditor, blockchain developer, whatever you're looking to be in a fraction of the time. So with that out of the way, let's get into my work operating system. All right, guys, awesome. So we're going to cover, first of all, probably we're going to start off, just cover my schedule. What does a normal day look like? What does pretty much every day look like? And then we'll talk about how I use this whiteboard back here to track some of the larger goals and sort of visualize. So I like to kind of visualize time actually moving and goals being achieved over time. And then I'll show you how I like to track work on like a day-to-day basis on a more granular level. And then finally, how I like to, when I am actually in the weeds doing work, or, particularly when I'm auditing, then how do I focus in and how do I track my time while I'm actually auditing? And then I want to talk briefly just about one critical flaw that I found myself falling into, a trap basically, and how I aim to basically get out of it, because it might actually be impacting you as well. And you might be stuck in it and you might not even know. And I actually was pretty much stuck in it myself, but I just never really thought about it and stepped back and took a wider view. And I was indeed stuck like this for probably multiple years. And so we'll talk about that, what that one critical flaw is, and then the three things that I'm looking to do to get myself unstuck and out of that flawed way of thinking. But yeah, so with that out of the way, let's get right into it. And so first of all, I've actually still got a schedule here listed out on my whiteboard. This is actually pretty old. So I don't even think I really follow this anymore. It's roughly still accurate. It's just the time is off. So you can see here I have like 11:30 as sleep, and I said like I want to bring this earlier. So this is when I was basically, what I was doing is I was staying awake doing work until like 2 in the morning or something like that, and then I'd wake up later and later. And so my goal here when I wrote this was like probably 4 months ago now, maybe even older, maybe even like 4 or 5 months ago, is I wanted to bring my sleep time earlier and then bring my awake time earlier as well. But I never actually got to wake up at 8:30. So what I'm doing right now is I wake up at around 10. I've got a timer set for 10 just because I found that I do like to have a time in the morning just to be consistent, but I need to be very strict with going to bed on time, right? So I wake up at 10 and I try to get to bed at 12 p.m. And I have a timer that actually tells me when it's time to go to bed. I rarely listen to it. In fact, right now it is, let's see, right now it is 12:20 in the night right now. So it's past my bedtime, but I'll be up at 10. So what pretty much every single day looks like, and like I'm not even capping, every single day is I will wake up at 10, then I will, generally what I'll do is I'll go and I'll hop on over to my workstation, sit down, answer some messages, and just get back to everybody on Discord, Telegram, everybody who's sent me messages. And then what I'll do is I will actually take, and I regret to admit it, I will take a cold shower. And that's not that's not because it's some trend or there's some like magical health benefits or anything like that. I actually thought it was stupid and I never did it before until this one guy, Rian Doris, he's like a flow researcher. I actually watched one video or podcast or something with him, and he mentioned that this is sort of like akin to like a breathing exercise or something like that, where you can basically release all of your pent up stress and energy and just kind of get a fresh slate to go and do work. Right. So actually that's what I like to do to get like really like catapulted into a really good session of work, is to actually just go and take a cold shower and then sit down and just bang out, 2 or 3 hours of really solid work. And I promise I'm really not trying to be like super trendy or memeable. I'll probably get memed for this, but that's fine. I've only been doing this for probably 3 months, and in the 3 months so far, I've done it every single day. I take multiple cold showers. We'll see how I like to do that, but I actually have found it to be quite useful in like sort of like, it's almost like a slap in the face, right? If you feel like you want to push off the work, you don't want to do it, you don't want to sit down and keep auditing that thing, or, you don't want to go write out that finding description or something like that. Go and take a cold shower and just sit down and get right to it. It's kind of like a slap in the face and keeps you focused, and sort of, it's almost oddly refreshing. So that is what I do in the morning. And let's see, here on this outdated schedule here, let's see, we've got 12 to 5 is sort of bucketed for calls. That's mostly actually true. And we've got 1 to 3 eat, shower. So yeah, that's actually pretty on point. I'd say around 1 in the afternoon, I'll go ahead and eat my first meal at 1, and we'll we'll see how I do my meals in just a second. And then I will take another shower usually around this time if I'm starting to feel like, a little bit burnt out from just working from, 10 to 1 in the afternoon, stuff like that. I'll go take another shower and then get another block of work done right there. And then what I'll do is finally, this is actually pretty accurate now. At around 5, I'll eat. I'll go to the gym. I will come back, eat again, and sometimes take another shower and then do another work session here. And we'll talk about the type of work that I'm doing in here in a second, and especially at the end. Actually, I think we'll talk about that at the end, because this is one of the changes that I'm going to be making. And then, so ideally, what would happen here is we would go from 8 to 10, and then I would be done. And then from 10 to 11:30, I would just have time to recover, probably watch like a podcast or something like that. But as you can tell right now, it is almost 12:30. Unfortunately, most nights end up somewhat like this with random, whatever projects we're working on, or if it's a video or something like this. So it's almost 12:30 and I'm still working. And most of the days do end up like this. And this is basically a part of the crux of the issue that we'll talk about at the end of this video. So next up, that's just a high level of what my schedule looks like. And honest to God, it is literally pretty much like that every single day. That's not like, oh, an ideal. That is basically what I do every single day. It is not terribly exciting, but that's what it is. So let's go ahead and see what is all this crap that I've got listed up here. So on this whiteboard, I like to have sort of the bigger picture, bigger, chunkier tasks. So this might not be exactly the granular things that I list out on my daily task sheet and we'll see how I do that. But I've recently started to like to just put like, here are the big blocks that need to get done in the next week, next 2 weeks. And then it does feel pretty good to be able to erase these one by one. So you can see right here, this is what we're doing right now. We're doing a video for Thursday. That is, or right now it's Monday. And this is the number one thing. I just wrote all these. This is a fresh list here. and we're going to knock this one off. It's going to feel great, right? So I've got a lot of things here. We've got, things for, first of all, we'll have an engagement for GMX. So that's something that's got to be worked on this week. And then you'll see a lot of this is, first of all, just videos. I'm pretty behind on videos, but a lot of this is work for Gateway. So Gateway is, of course, the program that we're building to be able to turn, perhaps junior auditors or solidity engineers into senior smart contract auditors in a matter of months instead of years. So we're doing a lot of work to figure out how do we piece together the program to be able to get that to work. So there's a lot of infrastructure, building things out, making the right content, and figuring out how do we structure the live sessions and everything like that. And we're going through and we're doing that with our first cohort of folks. So really appreciate having those folks with us. But yeah, that is probably the bulk of the work that I've got on my plate at this moment. And then I've got up here, I guess this isn't really a conscious decision, but I just happen to have, what are my two big goals right now? So my two big goals are the program. I want to have that planned out. So the Gateway, right now it's a 10-week program. We might end up changing that, but I want to have all of those weeks planned out at the very least, so we know exactly what the whole thing looks like front to back. And then I want to have it implemented, right? So all of the hard cost setup type things, all of the things that we actually work on in the program, and the schedule and everything like that. And then it just comes down to, okay, we do the live sessions and we can do those, but we've got all the hard costs, the stuff that takes a long time to build, out of the way. So that is basically just something I've started to do recently. Helps me to see some progress and also just focus in on, okay, what's the big picture stuff? And this is also somewhat related to what we'll talk about near the end. So finally, you see all of these little digits here. So this is basically, I'd just like to have a way to visualize, time passing, right? So I actually, when I first had all of these, so each of these rows is a week. I think I had about 5 weeks. So this was a week. And then we had a row here and a row there. And slowly I've been crossing these off and basically counting down the days to where we have accomplished these two goals, right? We've gotten the whole program planned out and implemented, and we've had a full run through and we've iterated on it and made it better and better. So that's what all of those digits are. Yeah, and the reason I'm doing that is, I don't know, I just wanted to have it visualized. It's not to add any urgency or like stress me out or anything like that. I thought it was just nice to be able to visualize, okay, time is passing. Here is when this is going to be done. Here's when that's going to be done, and just sort of see it visually. It also helps notice like the work that you're doing. You are actually getting things done and moving in a positive direction. So that was great to be able to formalize that and be able to visualize it. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys real quick is how I like to track my day-to-day goals. So on a more granular level, how do I go and track the actual work that I do on a daily basis? So first of all, I've got right here, this is my notebook. We can see it's got a number of things written here. These are some notes for a call. Right now, this was November 27th, so things have been kind of crazy. When things are crazy, I don't even plan. I just kind of work on whatever's in front of my face. But this is actually for today, what I was supposed to finish in the last half of the day, which is this video, finishing up the toolbox. And so that's part of the program stuff. So you can see I've got every single page here. Let's see if I can actually, every single day, well, most days, the vast majority of days, I go and I write what my goals are. Sometimes I'll put a time estimate next to them, but usually, like we can see here, it's just, a bunch of things that I've got to do. Gym is always on there. Whatever project we're reviewing, tweet often on there, and things like that. I mean, you can see here I was planning Gateway on August 25th, so it's been a number of months. But yeah, we've got this whole book is basically filled up, and I actually found one of my old books. So I've done this with a few books before. This is probably like my third or fourth book. And so I got a whole book here actually filled up with more of the same. So that is what I like to do on a day-to-day basis. How I like to keep track of, the more granular tasks that I've got to do throughout the day. And now I guess one other thing I want to show you while I'm here, I'm by the fridge. That is all my food. That's what I eat. That's probably my food for a week. And so what I did is I cooked all of that food in probably 2.5 hours on, I want to say Saturday, so 2 days ago, and just packaged it all up. And now when I do eat, I just go and grab it, throw it in the microwave. I know that those plastic containers are not great for me. I probably need to do some sort of glass containers, but that is an issue for another time. So that is how I go ahead and eat. It is, each one of those is either rice or pasta, so 250 grams of rice or 250 grams of pasta. Each of them have 60 grams of ground turkey, 80 grams of chicken, and for the pasta, I just throw on marinara sauce. For the rice, I throw on some hot sauce, and that is basically my meals for a week. Is either one of those two things, and I also have a protein shake and some almonds at the end of the day. So that is basically my day-to-day. That's my schedule. That is how I go and I track my higher level goals and sort of visualize time passing on my whiteboard. Now here's one last thing that I do just to be especially productive, just to make sure I'm present and in the moment when I'm actually doing work, is I've got one of these like kitchen timers. So this is not the Pomodoro technique. I I promise you, this is just me tracking time. So when I do sit down and do work, obviously I like to, shut off all distractions, but I also like to start a timer. And usually I just set it to 60 minutes. I don't do whatever the Pomodoro technique is, 20 minutes. I don't even know. I don't know what the cycles are or something, but I just set it to 60 minutes, and then that's just there so that, I can see the time counting down. Because I usually, as soon as I approach something that is a little tough, especially when you're doing a security review and you approach the part of the code base that you know is a little hard to understand, your mind wants to go elsewhere and it wants to, think about stupid shit, and it wants to think about stupid stuff, and you don't want to let it do that, right? So I've got this, and then me just being able to see that this timer is there counting down, it reminds me that, okay, time is of the essence here. We're focusing. This is what we're doing right now. So that's what I like to do with the timer. It's not a Pomodoro technique. Trust me, I would never, ever do the Pomodoro technique. But I do use timer just to track and say like, okay, I'm going to do a session for 60 minutes. And while I'm doing it, I'm here, I'm present, I'm auditing, and that just helps me focus. And it might help you too, but that's just what works for me. All right, so finally, what is the one critical mistake that I've realized that I've been making? And then what are the 3 things that I'm going to put into practice to solve it? So first of all, I realized that with all the work that we were doing, I found myself getting into work that wasn't necessarily moving us forward, but rather it was maintaining the same rate of output, right? So I think probably the number one biggest reason why I wanted to leave my job in the Web 2 world as a software engineer, the reason why I wanted to leave that job and come and work and build Guardian full time and work in the Web 3 space was to get more leverage and more control over my own time. And I think that's probably a similar reason as to why many people come into the Web 3 space. And perhaps that's even why, or at least one of the reasons why you decided to come into the Web 3 space yourself. So of course, I realized that I basically, quit my job only to come here and basically be doing the same type of capacity driven work where I was just working all the time just to maintain the same capacity of work that I was doing and that, our company was doing. And so of course, yes, we're doing a lot cooler work and we're building a company and a brand with all of the work that we're doing. But the work that I was doing was what I like to call maintenance mode work. So this is kind of like work that won't expand your productivity capacity or your output capacity. It just keeps up with the outputs that are demanded from you, right? So this is like if you are a consultant, if you are a solo smart contract auditor, if you are a software engineer, right? If you just have a job, then this is the work that you just got to keep doing, and that you get paid a certain amount for it. But the work in it of itself isn't increasing the output that you're able to produce in the future, the rate of your output, or it's not really increasing the amount that you might be able to earn in the future or anything like that. It's kind of the work that you do when you're just trying to keep doing the same thing, right? You just want to maintain or maybe slightly slowly increase in your output. And so this is a lot of the same work that I found myself doing, right? Getting very heads down on projects and things that we were doing. So when we were reviewing smart contract systems, that in my mind is, unless it's a really extreme opportunity and it's something that could really catapult you forward, it kind of grows to be that maintenance mode work, where it's work that you're doing that doesn't really increase necessarily your capacity for output in the future. It's not leveraged work. Now, the work that I wanted to spend more time doing and that I'm going to start optimizing for is what I like to call derivative work. So work that is, working on the rate of output that you're able to experience, instead of just going at that rate and just doing the work to maintain that rate. Let's work on the stuff that maybe you will have a lower rate of output today, but will literally increase your rate of output over time. So that is the kind of work that I want to be doing, work that makes me feel good, that we're actually moving forward at a rapid pace. And ideally, you can even work on the derivative of the derivative, the second derivative work that will even get you going in an exponential curve. But I will have to report back and see if we can get to that level. So I found myself basically just taking on opportunities that came my way that were good opportunities. They were okay opportunities, but taking on as much work as I possibly could, just because I had extra time to take on that work, right? And before long, I basically found myself trapped, and I didn't even really know it. I was just busy all the freaking time, and I still am, and that's why I'm implementing these 3 things that need to be implemented, because I found myself almost just mired in that maintenance mode work where, we had a lot of opportunities coming our way, and if you had capacity, it's like, well, I'll do it, right? Because it's good work to do. Sure, I'll take on this project. We will do a review of this project, and so on and so forth, right? But I very quickly, of course, found myself stuck doing just 80 hours a week of maintenance mode work, right? 80 hours a week where you're just maintaining this fixed output, and you're not really doing the work that will allow for you to have greater leverage in the future. So this is the one critical flaw of my thinking and the way that I worked for probably to be honest, the past year and a half or 2 years now. And I'd never really noticed it until I just took a step back and I just thought about the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis and realized that there is an easier way to get more. And so that's where I decided to do these 3 things that I'm basically implementing, and I will report back and we'll see how I'm able to transform the type of work that I'm doing and the type of outputs that I'm getting. So what are these 3 changes that I'm making? So first of all, I'm going to be very intentionally picky about the work that I take on, right? So if I'm going to take on work, then it should either be derivative style work that will actually improve my capacity or our capacity as a team in the future, so that we can increase our rate of output over time rather than just maintaining it. And of course, if it's just an extremely extraordinary opportunity, then of course I will also take that on, because presumably that would also lead to an increase in output or increase in results later on down the road anyways. And of course, I will also take on new opportunities if there's something that requires none of my time, right? So of course, if an opportunity costs none of my time, then of course I will take that opportunity on, right? Or explore it, consider it. Now, the second thing that I'm going to do is instead of approaching these daily tasks that I often find myself doing, like, configuring a new test repo for a project, or when it comes to writing finding descriptions and creating audit reports, not to just do the easy thing, which is to just do the brute force solution that would only take maybe 30 minutes to an hour or a couple hours, as opposed to a couple hours to even a day, to make a system that solves that thing for the rest of time, right? To make a solution that is a software or a SOP that can be shared with other people. So I think especially this is dangerous when you get into that zone of where you're just doing 80 hours a week of maintenance mode work. Then you don't really have time to step back and do the more derivative leveraged version of each of those solutions. You kind of are forced to do the brute force approach where it's like, well, I'm going to set up this repo for the 13th time, a new repo, and I'm going to do it manually. I'm going to go into the GitHub UI. I'm going to add all these contributors, all of these people to the private repo. I'm going to clone this or fork this repo. I'm going to do it all manually instead of making a bash script that just adds your whole team to it and forks the right repo automatically. Now, maybe in that case, creating a new repo isn't too time intensive. It probably takes like 5 minutes to go and create a repo and add all these people. But especially when it comes down to the really, really menial tasks like creating an audit report, one of the best things we did in the past couple of months was take a step back, and instead of spending 2 days to create an audit report, we took a step back. We said, okay, we can get a CSV export from Notion, which is where we keep our database of findings, and we can actually go and turn that into a PowerPoint, which is how we do our audit reports. And we can use a Python script to actually make it fit what our audits look like, and we can actually make it auto-generated. And this has saved us tens of hours, perhaps even a few days at this point already. And we're going to continue to be able to leverage this for the rest of time. But of course, we had to step back and think about what is the leveraged solution that might take a little bit longer than just getting the report out today, but actually be able to solve this for every other report down the line. So that is the second thing I'm going to do, is to force myself to take those leveraged solutions, to do the second derivative solutions of these more menial tasks that come up over and over and over again, right? Ideally, I want everything I do to be a second derivative. Well, ideally a second derivative, but most likely a first derivative type task that will create leverage in the future. And then ideally we can see the work output go up and up from there. And then finally, the third thing that I want to implement, and I'm going to implement, and I have implemented for the last 2 days now, is to save the first 3 hours of work in the morning, which is probably some of my best hours. So we talked about, the blocks of work that I have on my schedule. Save that first block of work, those first 3 or so hours, for the derivative work. So only do derivative work that is going to move the output capacity up over time in the first 3 hours of the day. That way I make sure it gets done, and it actually also has my greatest effort and focus into it. And so that way we're basically ensuring that I can never get stuck into an 80-hour work week where no derivative work happens, because I'm hard coding it at the first thing in the day. That derivative work has to happen. So we have to move forward in terms of leverage. So that was my work operating system. That's the clever title that I came up with. It's really just a collection of a handful of things that I've just picked up over the years and some thoughts that I'm currently having about the way that I'm working. I hope this was somewhat valuable to you to see how I like to deal with things and the types of issues that I'm running into and how I'm thinking through those issues and trying to address them. And then also lastly, most importantly, I hope you take away from this video that I most certainly have not ever, nor will I ever in the future, try the Pomodoro technique. And I hope that you never will either. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. All right.